Instructional delivery systems, distance learning, web-based learning, integrated learning systems, knowledge delivery systems, distance education, e-learning, virtual learning environment. We've discussed the multiple names for web-based systems, of which the overall goal is to educate its participants about specific content. As Davis explains, all teaching and learning systems should be built on two foundations: the needs of the intended students and the learning outcomes of the course or program. Despite these common, unified foundations, educators and researchers have developed numerous and varied names for this type of education. So, can all of these descriptors really modify the same entity? To answer this question, I would argue that names don't describe the entirety of a delivery system, but rather the purpose of the system and the perspectives of the involved parties. For example, terms like web-based learning, distance education, and virtual learning environments tend to emphasize only the role of the student. Instructional delivery systems, knowledge delivery systems, and course instructional management systems seem to highlight the role of the teacher, administrator, and the institution, but not the student. I agree that the word delivery is an accurate word to define the system. It incorporates the role of the educator, communicating, making resources available, and utilizing technology tools and mediums to present content. The word system is also adequate because it implies the existence of some sort of infrastructure, which we know certainly exists in this context. Delivery and system. These words are appropriate. So what words should be used, whether adjective or noun, to describe such a delivery system? I suggest the word learning. Before you say, "Are you really that dumb?" Didn't you read any of Terrence's comments during week 1? He does not like the word learning as a descriptor. It's too complicated, it's too vague. So of the vast English vocabulary, why would you choose the one word that the professor clearly does not like? Before you develop any of these thoughts, hear me out. I may be able to change your mind on the view of the word, or I may be that dumb. First of all, the combination of learning delivery acts as one unit to modify the system. The amalgamation of the two are imperative. Delivery represents the deliverers, the teacher, the editor, the administrator, the developer, the people producing the output. Learning signifies the presence of the student, the person interacting with the input, the learner whose needs and outcomes should be the primary focus of distance education. So there's the argument that the word learning is too complicated. It umbrellas too many aspects of knowing, understanding, applying, analyzing, synthesizing, and evaluating content. However, I would argue that the word instructional is not complicated enough. The word instructional insinuates the process of simply putting out information or making orders or commands. As Bear and Bear point out, through delivery systems, educators notice a shift in their roles from an instructor to a guide. They facilitate activity and communication to promote critical thinking. They do more than just, as Webster puts it, teach a subject or skill. They plan, scaffold, model, assess, reflect, and modify so that their learners develop and apply knowledge, skills, attributes, and abilities. In its complexity, the word learning carries with its name these complex processes. In addition, the word learning also reflects the intricate nature of teaching through delivery systems. Bear and Bear claim that educators need to develop fluency with teaching and learning with technology, not just with the technology itself. That is to say, these teacher researchers need to further explore virtual pedagogy since the online environment changes so many dynamics of teaching. They need to establish social presence, teaching presence, and cognitive presence. They need to create evaluation criteria for facilitating online discussions. They need to collaborate with peers to ensure students' needs are being met. They need to manage critical and timely feedback. They have an elaborate role to fill, a role that is still being researched and developed. The roles of a system delivery teacher is just as complex as learning. From an educator's standpoint, I advocate the use of the term learning delivery systems. Yes, learning is complex. Educators, lawmakers, and researchers have been battling how to deliver and measure it for years. But equally, educators, developers, and researchers are still exploring and investigating how to deliver content online. Learning and teaching are both complicated processes, especially in a relatively new virtual environment. Learning delivery systems is an adequate term for such an event.